Seem to have a few updates with prop firms here. FTMO and Funded Next I want to speak about first before we get into this week. We've actually seen a dashboard update, which there was nothing wrong with the previous one. It just looks even better now. And it goes to show how much more innovation FTMO just keep putting in. You can see here we've got a bit clearer equity curve before we even go into the actual main metrics. On the live metrics as well, I've noticed they've changed the consistency score to a semicircle. And we can also see we have the news for the week. So if anyone doesn't go on Forex Factory, it's a nice addition there. And you can also add it to your own calendar on Google as well, if you don't already know how to do that. As for Funded Next, big shock when I come on to do this video, saw they're actually basically put in a news rule, 5 minutes each side of news. It's not a breach, it's a 40% profit from the news, for money you make through news. The problem I've got with this is I bought this account more as a swing trader with no thought process that they'd even come in with this. They changed their logo this week or the week before, and as a result, started changing rules. I've had this same problem with Alpha Capital Group, where they started to enable more different rules that didn't align with my trading, such as changing when you got your payout, changing the news rule, without really even giving you a swing on Funded Next. There's no option for a swing account. So now I'm stuck with an account I don't even want. To be honest, I don't want it. Why would I want to make 40% profit if I maybe took 2 losses and I take a win? Then that wins 40%. That's not going to make back the losses. So it does suck, and I want to keep everyone informed. You might not even know this. And if it goes over your head and you don't see it, all you're going to end up doing is being in jeopardy when it comes around to you making profit around news. Really, really sucks, because at least with Think Capital, for example, you're paying extra for the news, and they can't take that away from you then with an add-on. And I'd rather not be buying add-ons. At least then you know that that's not going to change. And I always say this, the best prop firms, they don't change things that will hinder your trading. The reason why they do this is because they're losing money. They have to be, because they wouldn't start putting in stupid rules that made them so great in the first place. But it is what it is. You are at the mercy of prop firms at all times, and that is the way it goes when you're a funded trader. As for this week, we did take 1 loss, so we're going to go through that. I've still got risk wrong at somehow. Lost just over 1% on that. So we're down 3.3% on the funded account. And we're also risking higher. We risked 2% on this, which I wanted to do. We're only up. We've been down about 4% over the last few weeks. We're only up just under 2%, which is annoying because we're very close to passing that phase 1. And it has been a really bad month as a whole. There's not been real many opportunities. Now this week, the loss that I took was early for the move, and the analysis actually played out to a T. Sometimes there's just a bit of discrepancy between when you think price is going to go and when it does. This is a perfect week to prove that, look, I've been trading prop firms for 100k challenges less than a year. In that 9 to 10 months, I've made about 30 R. I've passed about 4 prop firms. I think it is the 100k counts or more. And I've been able to acquire a few payouts. That's the first real step to being a 7-figure funded trader. Not that really that even matters, because as long as you can get FTMO and the fivers, you're set, in my opinion. Even $500,000, that would be. As a whole though, my trading's come a long way in the last year. You can't expect it to just shoot up and progressively just keep going like that. I've had to experience the live market through my trading to understand now how to catch these moves. And it was a perfect trade that I did not take. I set up for it, did not take, because it's not in my rules. And I do want to become a bit more freestyle, but that's going to take a bit more time, maybe a few more months. And we're going to go through how I could have caught that. Really, really good video, because I've took a loss, I've reevaluated why it lost, and then I've looked for the move that would have played out and how I could have caught it. As for the fivers, we took 1% risk, we're down 1.7. Funded Next, we're down three losses, 1.5% each. And then we over-risked on this somehow. We're down 2%, but it's not a problem. It was the first trade anyway on Think Capital. So we're in a bit of a drawdown period. Now, I've had a profitable quarter, and as long as I can say that, I'm happy. Yes, it's not the quarter that I wanted. We had 2 losing months in it. Obviously, we still got next week. We could end up with a win, and it will just make the month a little bit better. Or we could take 2 wins, and then all of a sudden, it's a good month. But I want to talk through my potential wrongdoings here on the US dollar index. We discussed this level last week a lot. 104 was an area that I just didn't expect us to break straight through for the monthly closure. We're obviously outside of 2 different zones that we started the month in, and we've just seen continued downside. On the weekly time frame, we can see last week closed very weak. We tapped into this key liquidity and we have this weekly FVG here. We retested 104 later in the week, and that's what made it quite difficult. When looking at this closure, I still think we had to take previous weekly high to come down. That was my opinion of what I thought was going to happen. The reason why I had some waiting on that was if that was the current weekly high for that week, last week, Thursday took it out. Why did Friday need to come up again? I feel like it should have gone down on Friday without having to come and clear Thursday's high, which made the closure weak because it didn't have enough time to come down, and it didn't engulf. We didn't take the previous daily low. So really we're just in this range area where, if anything, my analysis was to still see further upside to come down. Where I wanted to see price was coming to this daily FVG to come and clear this low, and we could have looked for some sales after the fact or correlating buys on EU. So as for EU, the weekly closure, if we go on to the monthly, again, we're way far out from where we started the month, which always makes it harder. It's always going to be the case. And we can see here that this level here, 107.5, we're looking to see if the monthly can hold that area. We know, especially, spoke about this last week, 109. And there started to be a few correlations that I wanted to talk about because it was building up a bigger picture for me. 109 on the monthly, we don't like just going straight through it. We have a lot of issues at it. On the weekly, it's even more so the case. You can see how many times we struggle to break through it. Last time where we come up into that area to retest it, we had 2 weekly candles before we come down. So that was a key interest. It's not necessarily one of my key levels, but it is a psychological level. And I was starting to weigh up, okay, we got a weekly candle. We've come into not just one. You've got one area here, fair value gap on the weekly. You've got a second one, which was higher up. So you've now got 2 weeklies we've come into. We've took out this liquidity. We've also on the daily time frame come into this fair value, this order block, sorry. This order block is important because it's where we sold off from the previous time we come into it. We have come into it the previous week. Not only that, to close the week, I started to look at this order block and I've said the most recent price action, Friday took out Thursday's high and closed below it. Failed to engulf. If it engulfed, I would have said, yeah, more likely to come up and clear the highs. But looking at that at the time, for me, I was not seeing how price was going to come up and clear this daily. Another reason why is because we're in 2 dailies here. Price never pulled back into a daily. So for me, that's a lot of my strategy is based on wanting to see that. We didn't come and clear any liquidity either. So it wasn't very clear for upside at all, especially with the weekly closing so weak as it did. So that was really my analysis. Now, coming into Monday, my idea was I wanted to see Friday's high break to see a sell. That was my idea based on that week closure on Friday. I think looking back, there wasn't enough confluences, but I was weighing up all the confluences that were up here. So there was a lot of confluences, but then again, in terms of what's happening right now, maybe not as clear as maybe later in the week that we saw. GU, for example, coming into this week, I mean, yeah, I was still looking at 130 being tapped. There was obvious signs that we still needed to come up. The monthly is, once again, way outside of where we started. We have come up. We still haven't tapped 130. So there was no real signs on the daily of strong bearish candles. Therefore, I was still looking at price coming up. And equally, you could probably say that for EU. There was no real signs of strong bearish candles. So there we go. There was still maybe a bit of me trying to get in too early in the move. And I'm not going to shy away from that because it potentially was what I did. So if we go into this week, we can see here Monday, I was looking for this move. So my idea was this, looking for price to come up in the start of the day, looking to hold about 350. Liking to see this wick respected, this high, and I was looking for a play into previous weekly low. It was quite a big move, but we got stopped out on Monday, so it didn't really last that long. We got tagged in there, and then we got cleared, so we lost that. And then we looked after this. We can see that we took out previous weekly high, and we did the same thing on eventually here on dollar index. So I'm still bearish. I still want to see EU come down. I don't think the upside's strong enough. I think there's too much liquidity we're starting to, come into to the upside. Really looking at now where can I understand the failures to the upside? Because we may not come up like like a lot of people expect to see that further upside. So of course, coming into Tuesday, we'll finish the day. We can already see, finishing Tuesday, we've created a lower high here, which is very, very, very interesting. This is really the start of the idea that price might go down. Now, I've thought that pretty much around here, we may see the lower highs and we were going to see a continuation. We didn't. So we then took out this as liquidity, which is fine. Just want to go back to Tuesday's closure because it is important. I really do think it is important that if you look at DXY on Tuesday's close, we never cleared. Like, yes, we've took out the previous weekly low, but we never cleared the low with a body. That just to me suggests there's not necessarily enough to see a further low formed for where we're currently at. Same for EU. Like we come into this daily, we nearly filled it, I think, but we're not breaking through it. At that point, you're starting to eye up like potential equal lows or potential inducement here if we fail to the upside, as this low would have failed to take out the high. So as we come into Wednesday here, I'm really starting to eye up what we do on the 1 hour around here. And this is where I already know I'm starting to get a bit better, because I already know that I'm not confident enough to execute on these yet, but I do know how to understand the price chart reading as we go through the day, which before I'd shy away from. So as we start to see here, we break this low. Now what you can gather on the lower time frames is this low did fail to come and take this high. So now that's an inducement. Price took that as an inducement. So now price needs to come up. If we're going up for the rest of the week, we need to see price come up. If not, and we start to break back below this with candle bodies, then we've started to create bearish structure in the market, being higher low, lower high, break below, we'll make a lower low, look for a lower high, continue down. So if we look at this, we see that break. So at this point, I'm bearish. And what I looked at is I looked at this wick and I went, that's a very nice wick. Now what do I want to see? Well, this low, if we don't take this low out, we may have to induce that. So that could be a potential inducement. If not, it's going to be the high where we had a nice wick form off it. So what we can understand is we actually created a bit of volume off here. We created an unmitigated wick. If we clear this low, that's a clear entry point. Now we can see a nice order block formed up here as well. So my idea really that I set up on, Wednesday afternoon, was after we took that low out here, I looked for a move that would play to the equal lows. So it was just around 3R. I think that was pretty much where I was looking at a move. Now, of course, why it was so difficult is it was all around news. So you're going to have to be trading around the news event. Late on a Wednesday, I usually trade and set alerts 6 till 7 in the morning. This is a manual entry. This is more of a manual position, and I don't really trade them. So this is where I want to look to advance my strategy a bit more. But you can see how I've broken down that. In the moment, I understood it, and I also still had the bias. So I didn't get scared away from the bearish bias despite losing. But I knew for the strategy that I traded at this moment, there was no trade. So I've set this up. And you can see here, coming into Thursday, we're already down here. So I've set positions in and around this area for the sell in the morning. But I already know that if we're respecting this high, and this is the high and this is the low, and this is a pullback, then we're going to see a continuation down, coming to equal lows, and that's the week done. So that was my play, and it played out perfect. You can see that. I was really happy I set that up, really happy. And I didn't throw a hissy fit of losing for the week. I took one loss this week. I think I took no trades last week and 2 losses the week before, and that's been my march. And I've had to sit out a lot, and when I've got back in the market, I've still ended up losing. And for some people, it may show a bit of lack of inexperience. And I would agree, I am inexperienced in this way of trading because I've only had 1 year. As a whole, I've traded many years, and I don't understand the psychology behind trading and how I've not been jumping into trades. In that example, taking that would have given me a nice win, but I'm not ready for that yet. But I am building upon the confidence to take them and be at times a little bit more freestyle. And I think the best traders have to be like that. They have to adapt to the current price action that's happening throughout the week, building the picture of the week. And for me, I was expecting Friday's high to be cleared and for us to go down. And I was just slightly wrong. We ended up coming to take the previous weekly high and then dropping. But that was a solid option. I'm really happy I set that up and can build a lot from that. It doesn't mean you have to come and take the trade. And I'm reinforcing that because a lot of people just jump in that and then be happy they won it. But you have to be confident enough. And the confidence comes from seeing something over and over and over again. And I'm really starting to understand how EU and GU move. And I feel like this next 6 months is crucial in my trading career to build up as much confidence and actually take that next step into trading, where these months at the minute that are -2, -3 are going to turn into positive months. And I'm not going to have as many losing months because my win-to-loss ratio this year has been shocking and not to the level I want it to be. But I need to improve on that. And I know exactly where my flaws are and how I can improve. So really that's the week done. And I've really talked about that in detail. There was clear options for sells. Why there was no options for buys for me is because, like I say, if we've had an issue at a daily POI, I want to see price come into a daily, where we didn't see that there. And for me, there wasn't enough of a mitigation to downside to see that push through the high. And I was correct on that. We can see there that these candles that come up were not convincing bullish candles. If we go into the 1 hour, we can see the breaks of Asian low, which is the strategy I trade. Here and here were just not enough of a pullback to even give me an entry if I was looking for that anyway. So there just wasn't enough there for the buys this week. And we got the GU idea right. We come up to 130 on Tuesday. And after that, the week's done. I want to see how we react to it, of course. But there was no room for me to be looking for a sell there of how I trade. And you can even see there from the lower time frames, because we have been a bit more bullish on GU, is at no point here did we create a lower high. What I mean by that is you could see EU, it created that lower structure. We created that lower structure from where we were here. So we saw the high, and then we could see the moves play out from that point. By this high, this lower high, this lower high, breaks of lower lows. In GU, we created a high. We pulled back, created a new high. Took that out as liquidity, created a new high, pulled back, failed to take out these lows. Look, more liquidity generated. Then we failed to take out the highs, really. We obviously did, but we consolidated here. It's not convincing. We didn't see any lower highs until really around here. So this morning, last night, was really the only option to really look for a sell, unless you were basing sells off the key level, which I'm happy to not look for that. It's not really the way I want to trade. And we may get the pullbacks now. Of course, now looking at price action, I still feel like EU needs to pull back into this daily POI. So I will be looking for options for that. I do believe at this point we're potentially looking at enough here to come down. But we need to see today really break this high low on the daily to give myself confidence that maybe we'll pull back. We've got a little daily here that we could come into. On the 4 hour time frame, we may have to see something like this and then get the sell. So I'm going to look for that over the weekend and see how we can catch the pullback move. It's not necessarily over. I wouldn't say I was too late. There's still potential options for the downside, but I am overall bullish on EU and GU. There's definitely needs to be enough said with the way DXY closes if we can get that close back above 104. But a great learning week for me again. I think, I'm feeling good. Now, obviously, I don't care about challenges being blown. I think at times you're risking higher, so you are going to blow challenges. That's not really a problem. My ability to risk 1% on the fundeds, it's come with increased confidence over time, building it up. Maybe, I wouldn't expect, I don't see how I'd have 10 losses in a row to blow that account. I still believe that, yes, I'm in 3% drawdown, but one win will take me out of drawdown. If I catch 2 wins, I'll get a payout. So I'm really looking at it from that perspective on the FTMO 200k. Now, it's a little bit daunting being in a 200k in drawdown, and it is hard psychologically, and I'm not going to lie, it is difficult. It's never easy when you're in drawdown. No matter whether it's a live account, a funded account, or a funded challenge, the idea has to be getting yourself from drawdown back to zero, rather than trying to worry about how am I going to get a payout now, I'm so far away. You probably are far away. You might be a month off getting a payout. But as long as you trade the way you trade, you know it's got an edge, over time it will play out. And it proves this month. Losing month, potentially, if we don't catch anything next week. January losing month, but the quarter still profitable. So keep the time frames you're looking at the bigger picture needs to be there. Stop looking at everything in a week-on-week basis. I've come on the last 3 weeks and just overall took losses. I've not took a win this month. I've probably not took a win for a month. And as a trader, I can have the ability to do that. And for me, a year ago or a year and a half ago, I couldn't even do that. It would take too much of a toll on me. But because I trust myself so much, I know over the rest of this year, things will work out. And having that belief, it takes you very far, trust me. So yeah, great video. I'm really happy to discuss the options there, how I could have caught stuff this week. It helps me clear my head better and how we can go into next week and execute. So yeah, guys, hope you had a good trading week. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.